Joey and Carly, good morning to you both. Happy Tuesday. Today, the nation's capital is once again in the national spotlight. There was the deadly shooting overnight in D.C., and it's putting the president's crime crackdown front and center. The shooting happened in D.C.'s Logan Circle neighborhood around 7 o'clock. That was only 9 hours after the president announced he's dispatching the National Guard, FBI, and ATF to beef up D.C.'s law enforcement response.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. And this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick, very quickly.
D.C.'s mayor says D.C. is a much safer city now than it was during the pandemic or when crime reached record levels back in 2023. While she is pledging to cooperate with federal agencies, it's D.C. City Council who are still not on board. They put out a statement saying this is a manufactured intrusion on local authority. Violent crime in the district is at the lowest rates we've seen in 30 years. Federalizing the Metropolitan Police Department is unwarranted because there is no federal emergency. Now, the president's authority over D.C. is limited. Congress still has the final say on how long this crime crackdown may last. D.C.'s U.S. attorney, a familiar face here at Fox, insists change was very much needed.
These cases are not being solved. And so the message is, if you want to commit a crime, do it in D.C. because they're not going to solve the case. Bring in someone younger to commit the crime, and we'll end up letting you go because the U.S. attorney can't get her hands on you.
So while this is starting in D.C., the president says he's open to additional crime crackdowns in major cities like Chicago and Los Angeles. We heard from the mayor of Chicago on Monday, who said if Trump were to send the National Guard to his city, that it would destabilize Chicago.
Dun, 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 dun. Little pig, let me in.
Benny Johnson, what he did is incredible. I mean, he was the leader of the committee, and he did it.
Yes. Oh, the barbarians are at the gate. We are live here from inside of the White House. Ladies and gentlemen, today, Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. This is a historic day, and we are in a historic location. For the first time ever, the Benny Show is being brought to you live from inside the White House, but not just the White House, from inside of Joe Biden's fake White House. You may recall from back in the fever dream of the Joe Biden era that Joe Biden often would use a fake White House. Killer Klein, pop up those photos, shall we, please? This is where we are broadcasting from today, inside of, where Joe Biden got his fake COVID shot. We are at the mini Fisher-Price desk, and I just cannot tell you how excited we are to be here, and thankful that the White House is allowing us to use this space as a guest in order to bring you live coverage of one of the most important moments in American history. President Trump taking back the city of Washington, D.C., where we are today. And that is our lead story for the day. Trump takes control of D.C., reasserting control like Batman over Gotham City. President Trump fighting crime. Hey, Alex, we may need to play the Donald Trump "I'm Batman" clip later today, so please have it handy. Donald Trump has deployed the National Guard. In fact, I saw them as I was driving in here today to sit in Joe Biden's fake Fisher-Price Resolute desk. It is an amazing moment. And we're just so thankful for this audience. We're just nothing but hearts out to the chat. Look at the chat roll. What up, chat? We love you. We here in the building. We're also going to describe how a whistleblower from Adam Schiff's own office has blown the whistle on treasonous acts of leaking classified information to the press. It's all in black and white. Kat Patel dropping the bomb on Adam Schiff today. A massive show. We have U.S. District Attorney Janine Pirro joining us today. We have Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the DOJ, Harmeet Dillon, joining us today. We have U.S. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund joining us today. And we have former U.S. Attorney Brett Tolman joining the show today. An absolutely locked and loaded show. Let's get started. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is the Benny Show from the White House, or the fake White House, actually. The real, I mean, it's part of the real White House, but it's the fake Joe Biden White House. I just can't get over it. We did it, Joe. We did it, Joe. We did it. Klein, can you pop up the, just do a play beside of that video that we took to sort of show everyone where we're at right now? It's pretty sweet, like actual studio that we're at on location. Show the people sort of like the walkthrough, please. Okay, here we go. We got the technical difficulties screen up, Klein. We are not having technical difficulties today. We're having an incredible technical day, actually, because of the spectacular staff here who helped us get set up and locked and loaded. But here you go. You can see sort of like a 360 of where we are broadcasting from. There you go. Okay. There you go. Locked and loaded. Ladies and gentlemen, you should be locked and loaded with your future. It's hard to have a great future in America if you are suffering under crippling debt. My friends at American Financing can help you solve that little problem. It's not a little problem, it's a massive problem. There's more debt than ever in America today. And the best way to unlock the golden era of your future is to get out from under it. All of those bills piling up. You're not alone. Most Americans are putting these expenses on credit cards. They're very, very expensive. Get out of debt today. Call American Financing and unlock the equity in your home. Their salary-based mortgage consultants can help home buyers just like you restructure your loans and consolidate your debt. No upfront fees, and American customers are saving hundreds per month. It's like a $10,000 raise per year. It's fast and it's simple, and it could save you this summer. So call now before it's too late. 888-528, that's 1219. That's 888-528-1219, americanfinancing.net/Benny. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, why is this issue so near and dear to my heart? President Trump reasserting control over Washington, D.C. Well, I may not be here, actually, because I made a decision to begin my young life in Washington, D.C. And nobody likes hearing people who, I mean, I love my life, and I've been overwhelmingly blessed by God, and I love my family and my children, and the blessings abound, and we carry you all through this, and we celebrate. But I got to tell you, we had troubles. My family had troubles here in D.C. And I try not to complain about it because nobody likes a victim, and nobody likes somebody who's, just talking in anecdotes all day or complaining, or whinging about the past. But since it is top of the news cycle, and I see a lot of people in my feed, a lot of left-wing reporters, people that I've hated for a long time, lying about crime in D.C., I want to just begin by saying that this is something that has profoundly affected me and my family. I lived in Washington for 15 years. I lived on Capitol Hill. I lived not too far from the United States Capitol building. Let me explain my life. And I did so on X, and it's gone viral. So here's the post. Let me explain what life was like living here as a young professional trying to start a family. Every single day, I was worried about getting robbed. I was robbed more times than I can count. And I lived on the same block as members of Congress and ambassadors. It's not like your privilege didn't protect you here. It is a completely and totally sunken city. I lived on Capitol Hill. I was a maybe 3-minute or 5-minute Uber ride to the U.S. Capitol building. So in no way was I living in some type of absolute, total bombed out, wretched ghetto or Section 8 housing. We were in what was considered semi-respectable neighborhood. So let me explain to you the life of that semi-respectable neighborhood. On a daily basis, our car windows would get smashed so that some degenerate could rifle through our glove compartment to see if they could find any petty cash, see if they could find a watch or a firearm or whatever they were looking for. My neighbor got robbed at gunpoint. She's a young woman for $20. She could have been left for dead. Many people did die on my block. They were captured on my Ring camera. I have murders on my Ring camera. Unsolved murders, by the way. Cops were never too interested in the footage. Cops were never interested in solving anything because every time they put a criminal behind bars, they would see him that afternoon at the Church's Chicken, right? It's the same afternoon. at the gas station, you see the guy you just locked up. How depressing has that got to be for officers of the law? I'm not saying they're the bad guys. I'm saying that the system here in D.C. has failed. And it failed so severely that after D.C. defunded their police, there were mass shootings with regularity on my block. Here's the video of one. I have it captured on my Ring doorbell camera. Here's an individual that during a mass shooting went jumping into my yard. That's my little yard. That's my wife's rose bush with multiple bullet wounds. Then a drug war ensued on my block, and that drug war resulted in an arson that burned down the known drug house that was connected to my house because they're row houses. That fire ended and resulted in multiple deaths of 2 dogs that were in this home and the near death of my family. My infant child was in the home along with my wife. And so we fled literally for our lives. DC is a kill box. It is a death trap. It is a lawless hellscape, and it is a scar on the face of our national conscience. Because we as Americans deserve a capital city that is beautiful and safe and that projects the power and the values of Western civilization. We do not deserve the crime-addled, narco-welfare hellscape that DC has become. President Trump is doing God's work by refederalizing DC. By the way, DC was set up as a federal city. It's in the Constitution. It's how our founding fathers intended it. These laws are still fully enforceable. They've never been rescinded or amended. President Trump and the executive, through the House of Representatives, controls Washington, D.C. President Trump controls budgets. House of Representatives and the Speaker of the House is technically and historically the mayor, the lead of D.C. That still remains on the books. What happened to D.C., especially during the civil rights period, was that protesters that were bussed up here stayed here. The city was burned to the ground. This happened during massive riots throughout the 60s and 70s. Mass swaths of the city were torched and were never really rebuilt. And so what President Trump is doing is reasserting control of not only our nation's capital, but truly the seat of Western civilization. There's one final little note here that kind of blends outside of the personal, which is that Washington, D.C. is a representation of the work of your forefathers and mine. It is, by every measure, a very beautiful city architecturally. It is a sacred city. It is a sovereign place with the monuments to great men and women who've sacrificed far more than you or I could ever dream for this country. It must be preserved because the peoples of Earth come here by the millions per year in order to witness the success or failures of our systems. And if you are a proud patriot and you love this country and you wish for it to be reflected honorably to the peoples of Earth, then Washington, D.C. must be swept clean. I believe entire neighborhoods probably need to be emptied, need to be bulldozed. I believe that there are places that are so crime-ridden and so infested that you just need to, you're just going to have to crack down. You're going to have to do the job, and you're going to have to get the crime out of Washington. That's my personal experience. Don't believe the bullshit that you hear online from some reporters. Oh, crime's down in D.C. Well, my infant nearly died in a drug fire after mass shootings. So no, D.C. is not safe. And I can tell you this as a matter of fact, it is one of the worst, most racist narco states and welfare states imaginable. In that neighborhood that I would walk every single day, racial epithets were screamed at us, rocks were thrown at us because we were white people. This city is a sunken place. It is an unsafe place. I mean, if that's what happens to me, imagine what happens to somebody who's visiting here from a foreign country, right? It's totally and wholly unsafe and a scar on the face of our country. And it must be healed. And President Trump is going about that heavy work. So God bless the president. Here's President Trump's announcement yesterday. It was live on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, a recap here.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is precisely what not only President Trump has the power to do, but also the obligation to do. President Trump must do this for the preservation of his administration. And consider where so much of this stems from. Big balls. Remember Big Balls? What's his name? Edward Constantine. I've never met him. He's famous. He worked for Doge. He's a 19-year-old. That just a few blocks from where we are broadcasting right now in the heart of the White House, Big Balls stopped a mugging that was happening to an innocent woman. He stopped it, and for his trouble, was beat within an inch of his life and left bloodied and dead, dead on the road. Thank God he's recovering now. This inspired President Trump to talk about the savagery of D.C. How can you expect to run an administration? We know so many wonderful people in this White House. There's so many honorable and dignified people that work here. They're our friends. They're our family. We care about them. And I fear for them every single day when they walk to work, just like I feared for my wife walking to work. I dropped my wife off at work every single day in our car at the crack of dawn in the morning because I was so scared of her riding the subway in the metro here. This is how dangerous of a place this is. And President Trump and his administration will not be able to get their jobs done if they fear for their lives every day going to and from work. No good man or woman would ever sacrifice their family or their safety in order to work in a rat-infested, hellscape, narco and welfare state like this, where gangs run the streets like it's South Sudan. How can you expect good people to move here and want to wish to work here? Your country is going to fall by proxy. That is what President Trump said yesterday, that D.C. will no longer be a sanctuary for criminals. Here we go.
In the District of Columbia, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment. And I'll be making the appropriate notifications to Congress and to the mayor, our new DEA administrator, who's one of the top in the country. He better be Terry. If you're not, I'm going to get rid of you so fast. Terry Cole. Terry, thanks. Very good. We just got him. Most highly recommended person. And you'll be designated as the interim federal commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Department. Okay? And you run them tough. They're good. You have a lot of good people. You have people that shouldn't be there. You also have people that shouldn't be there. They got in there because of woke. But you have a lot of great police. And those people are the ones that want to help you. This city will no longer be a sanctuary for illegal alien criminals. We will have full, seamless, integrated cooperation at all levels of law enforcement, and we'll deploy officers across the district with an overwhelming presence. You'll have more police, and you'll be so happy because you'll be safe. When you walk down the street, you're going to see police, or you're going to see FBI agents. We're going to have a lot of agents on the streets. You're going to have a lot of essentially military, and we will bring in the military if it's needed. By the way, we're going to have National Guard, but Pete Hegseth will tell you about it. We will bring in the military if needed. People say, "Oh, that's so terrible." He's going to bring in. It's been used many times over the years. I don't think we'll need it. I think we've got so many great people, including the people that are in the police department with proper leadership. They'll immediately begin massive enforcement operations targeting known gangs, drug dealers, and criminal networks to get them the hell off the street, maybe get them out of the country, because a lot of them came into our country illegally. They shouldn't have been allowed in. They come from Venezuela. They come from all over the world. We're going to get them the hell out. They won't be here long.
President Trump says that the D.C. police force is DEI and woke. Is that true? Let's go ahead and check. The current chief of the D.C. police, Pamela Smith, is the former chief equity officer whose primary job was overseeing DEI programs. You can't even make it up. It's like a South Park episode. Why would you ever put a diversity person in charge of real police force? The insanity must end. Yeah. This is called restorative justice. This is what restorative justice looks like from Stephen Miller. The founders made D.C. a federal city under the sole and exclusive control of the federal government as the nation's capital. This provision has been and remains in effect since the Constitution was ratified and has never been amended or revoked. It remains in full and complete force. So what President Trump's doing here is, of course, entirely legal and, of course, necessary. And in case you're wondering if it's just because Big Balls was attacked and I happen to like Doge and the team there a lot, no. We actually yelled until our voice cracked when a Democrat member of Congress from Texas, a place that I'm not from, a man I've never met, his name's Henry Cuellar, he was robbed at gunpoint on Capitol grounds practically. So you have members of Congress who was carjacked. So he had to give up his sushi and his car. So he was going out to get sushi. He's a Democrat member of Congress from Texas. He's pretty famous. He's on TV all the time. He's going back to his apartment in a very rich and very wealthy part of town, right there in a place called Navy Yard. That's right next to the Capitol building. And this Democrat member of Congress gets robbed, carjacked, and they took his sushi and his vehicle. The youths, as President Trump calls them. It can't happen. I mean, how are you ever going to have good people, not just serve in the Trump administration, but like run for Congress? Who would ever wish to run for Congress? And we were as concerned when this happened, just in case you're wondering, we have equal opportunity concern here. We were as concerned when this Democrat got robbed as we are when Big Balls got left for dead, as we are when my family got nearly burned alive in our house. No, it is long past time. Ladies and gentlemen, is there any legal problems with any of this? Jonathan Turley, our favorite legal expert, explains. Here we go.
Well, there is. Washington, D.C. is unique. He's able to do this more easily here because it's a federal enclave. It belongs essentially under the jurisdiction of Congress, which gave D.C. self-rule, but that was not a complete surrender of authority. They have a right to take it back. He has the right to take control of the D.C. police during periods. If he wants to go longer with 30 days, he can do so. He can also bring out the National Guard. And once again, there's no governor here, so that is also easier than would be the case in other blue cities. But he has already conveyed in California and now D.C. that he's prepared to go as far as he needs to go until he feels that they are taking the safety of citizens more seriously.
D.C. is not a real place. They've sort of wished D.C. to become a real place with a feckless city council and a woke mayor who, might I remind you, painted "defund the police" on the roads in front of the White House. We have that gorgeous image. I'm not sure if we have it on hand, but it's that beautiful image taken from a drone high up above D.C. with the "defund the police" message straight down the avenue leading to the White House. This was done by the city of D.C., by the mayor of D.C. There you go. Yeah, there it is in part, right? Defund the police. There it is in black and white. So the city has chosen, the city's government has chosen to abdicate on behalf of criminals, abusers, rapists, and murderers, all of their responsibilities to lead. By the way, in case you're wondering, that's right in front of the church that Black Lives Matter burned to the ground, right? So this is St. John's Church. That's the closest church to the White House, arguably the most historic church in America. Defund the police was painted on the road in front of it before the riots, whose sole intention, as stated on camera, to burn the White House down, and to physically attack President Trump. They said it on camera. That was their goal. That's why they ran through the ramparts on May the 20th, 2020, the true insurrection. And then they took that church and they set it ablaze. They don't want you to remember this history because the left doesn't want you to remember that they fomented and advocated for church burning and for burning down the White House and attacking the president in a true, by definition, insurrection. But that's what they did, and we have the photos to prove it. So these are the people that are now giving mea culpas to President Trump, saying, please, please don't take over the city. Yeah, you had your chance. You had your chance. Here, what a shot. Not a shot from a Civil War movie or from a video game, from Call of Duty. Not a shot from some type of sci-fi where an alien invades D.C., right, and blows up the White House. Not a shot from any of the Michael Bay films. A literal shot from the BLM riots, deadly riots throughout the city where the Capitol was burned to the ground. Look at that, where large black plumes of smoke flowed through the city as they sought to torch the monuments, as they scrawled the words Nazi across the World War II monument. I saw it with my own eyes. I have the photos to prove. So they want you to forget all this stuff, and now they're shrieking and crying that the president is doing something about it. Not everyone is, though. Something that is deeply honorable that we don't typically do on this program is to give a hat tip and a little bit of credit to the corporate media. An ABC News anchor, of all people, decided to admit that, yes, in fact, D.C. is a sunken hellscape and that she can't even get to work without getting mugged. Kind of like me. Here we go.
We've been talking so much about the numbers, and yeah, usually that's how you play devil's advocate, is you talk about, oh, well, stats say crime is down. However, I can tell you firsthand here in downtown D.C. where we work, right here around our bureau, just in the past 6 months, there were 2 people shot. 1 person died, literally 2 blocks down here from the bureau. It was within the last 2 years that I actually was jumped walking just 2 blocks down from here. And then just this morning, one of my coworkers said her car was stolen a block away from the bureau. So we can talk about the numbers going down, but crime is happening every single day because we're all experiencing it firsthand while working and living down here.
Good for you. I'm not familiar with that anchor, but good for you. Way to speak truth to power. Way to actually speak up. And this is the experience. This is what an honest report of what life is like inside of Washington, D.C. looks like. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a spectacular guest who will be joining us in just a moment to talk about something that was very predictable. Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, and the Democrat Party whinging on behalf of criminals, criminal aliens, rapists, and murderers. Nancy Pelosi yesterday decided to throw up this banger. Donald Trump delayed deploying the National Guard on January 6th. When our capital was under violent attack. Now he's activating the D.C. Guard to distract from incompetent mishandling and tariffs. Healthcare, education, and immigration. Just to name a few blunders. Okay. Nancy Pelosi got ratioed into the sun. You can see there are 22,000 comments to her post. So that's, by the way, a nuclear scorched earth ratio. But she especially got ratioed by the former chief of police for the Capitol Police Force, a man named Stephen Sund, who will be joining us, ladies and gentlemen, in just one moment for, well, something that I think is going to be a very interesting lesson in history. Here's a lesson for any of you who just come home with a little bit of stress on your face and a little stress in your lives, as I do every single day. Bond Charge and their red light holistic wellness mask and sauna is an excellent way to relax and recharge. It's a spectacular way to ensure that whether it's razor burns or you just want to feel euphoric before going to bed, you have a little bit of that sauna engagement. It's good for your skin. It's good for your health. It's good for your heart. The red light therapy is spectacular. It's a lifesaver for me and for my wife. She swore by it. I actually got hooked on this when my wife was pregnant, and she would do red light therapy all the time. It's one of the things that she engaged in order to get through it all. Ladies and gentlemen, the sleek and lightweight design, 1-year warranty. This face mask from Bond Charge will have you looking and feeling younger. Ladies and gentlemen, Go to boncharge.com/Benny and use the coupon code Benny for 15% off. That's BONCHARGE.com/Benny. Use coupon code Benny. Save 15% today. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now, Capitol Police Chief, former, Stephen Sund, out with probably the most viral post on the internet at the moment. Welcome to the show. Stephen, welcome back.
Greetings, sir. Thank you very much for having me on.
Welcome to the program. Did you know that you would have probably the most viral post on earth? Did you know that you'd ratio Nancy Pelosi yesterday?
I suspected it was going to get some attention. I had responded to a post of hers a couple of weeks back that got some similar attention. And again, my goal isn't to get into a public argument with the former speaker. My goal is to set the record straight. American people, and I think judging by the response that it's seeing and the fact it's gone viral, the American people want to know the truth, and they're not getting it from her.
So please, if you would, I could read it live on air. I'd rather you actually explain what happened on the day of January 6th, given the fact that Nancy Pelosi has decided to use Trump's deployment of the National Guard as an attack vector. I think that's not a smart strategy given Pelosi's history. Could you please explain that history with Nancy?
Yes, let me take you back to a couple days before January 6th. Take you back to Sunday, January 3rd. It was the first day of the new Congress. They're all being sworn in. That was the day I went over specifically to see both the House and Senate Sergeant at Arms to request the use of the National Guard to help support my perimeter. Again, a lot of people don't realize National Guard can't come up to Capitol Hill, and I cannot bring National Guard up to Capitol Hill without approval of the Capitol Police Board. It's actually by law, it's 2 U.S. 1970. The Capitol Police Board has to make the request. But I went to the two Sergeant at Arms, Paul Irving, who's the House Sergeant at Arms, worked specifically directly for Nancy Pelosi, and the Senate Sergeant at Arms, which was Mike Stinger at the time, who worked for McConnell. Went to see them in person to request National Guard support to help support my perimeter. I had 273 officers to support the perimeter during a joint session of Congress. All I wanted was unarmed National Guard to help maintain the perimeter. A fence line is no good if you don't have people behind it. Went up to see Paul Irving. I have my exact times. I've turned over all my video transcripts on my phone records, have my exact times. It was the morning, Sunday morning, approximately 9:35. Went over to see Paul Irving and was denied. Was denied bringing in federal resources, specifically because he was concerned about the optics of having National Guard on Capitol grounds. He then referred me over to Mike Stinger, who is now the chairman of the Capitol Police Board, the Senate Sergeant at Arms. Went over immediately to see him. He wasn't in. I came back approximately 11:40 to see him again. As soon as I came walking in and started asking for the use of the National Guard, he already had a denial queued up. He wouldn't allow me to bring in the National Guard. Later, he told me that Paul Irving had come up and told him that Sund was coming to request the National Guard, and they had to come up with another idea because he was believed he would never get that by Pelosi. So Sunday, I'm denied. I go back to my office. A call comes in to the office to one of my deputy chiefs from Carol Corbin. She's the program manager at the Pentagon that handles what they call DSCA, the Defense Support for Civil Authorities, calling over to offer National Guard, asking, are we going to be requesting National Guard? So by law, I've been denied the use, so I have to decline the offer of National Guard. So now fast forward to January 6th, we have the riot begin at the Capitol, 12:53 p.m.
If I may, I hate interrupting. I just want to establish very quickly, because there was a lot of information, data, and fact patterns there, and names that people may not be familiar with. To boil it all down, you begged Nancy Pelosi's leadership structure for National Guard protection days before January 6th.
Correct.
And you have a record of that, and Nancy Pelosi's leadership structure and enforcement structure, security enforcement structure, told you flatly, no, this is going to look bad we don't like the look of it or whatever, and no.
100% correct. I was denied twice. Specifically, they would not approve the request, specifically concerned over optics. You are absolutely right. And again, I'm required by federal law to seek that approval. So without it, I cannot request any federal assistance or National Guard.
Forgive my interruption. Please continue.
No worries whatsoever. There's a lot of information, but I will tell you this: I'm a cop. I've been a cop for 30 years. I know my facts. I keep my facts, and I keep my records. And I've turned over everything since I first started to push to testify February of 2021. So fast forward to January 6th, 12:53. We're in the command center. The riot begins to happen on our west front. We're seeing my officers, which I knew that was concerned they were going to be outnumbered, start to be overrun. Immediately, 12:58, I call Paul Irving. I first called MPD for some assistance, then called Paul Irving and asked him at 12:58 p.m. specifically, we are getting overrun on the West Capitol. I need approval to bring in federal resources and the National Guard now, immediately. And what people don't realize, when I'm sitting in the command center, sitting right behind me are representatives from the Capitol Police Board. So Paul Irving's representative sitting right behind me and seeing exactly what I'm seeing on the video screens in the command center. He says to me specifically, I will never forget this as long as I live. Let me run it up the chain and I will get right back to you. I was dumbfounded hearing that. So hang up the phone. He's running up the chain. I'm seeing what's going on. I think this is getting really bad. My officers are getting their rear ends handed to them. I called Mike Stenger, and he's the Senate Sergeant at Arms. And I said, Mr. Stenger, I need approval to bring in National Guard assistance. Because still, even during emergency, I'm required to get this permission. He said, have you talked to Paul Irving? And I said, yes, I have. He's running up the chain. He goes, let's wait to hear from Paul Irving. 11 phone calls over the next 71 minutes before I finally received approval at 2:09 p.m. Do you have any idea how long it took that group to fight its way up to the Capitol, break the first window of the Capitol, and enter into the building?
It was multiple hours.
It took 81 minutes. 81 minutes for them to do it. For 71 of those minutes, I was repeatedly denied bringing in federal resources.
So when you were denied that resource that you had been requesting now for days, so now we have days of you requesting the National Guard get brought in, Nancy Pelosi retaliated against you personally because you were the one trying to protect the Capitol that day, which is a very interesting tactic. Nancy Pelosi has attacked you. Is that correct? For telling the truth about that day?
That is correct. And I'll tell you, when I couldn't get approval to bring in the federal resources, I started calling every chief of police I knew in the area, just asking for them to send me anybody they could. And thank God they did. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. Within 24 hours of us, resecuring the Capitol, them getting in and certifying the vote, Speaker Pelosi goes on national TV and singles me out by name as the person at the head of the Capitol Police that allowed this to happen. Demands my resignation and literally lies to the American people, saying he's never even called me since this occurred. I spoke to her 3 times, one time with the Vice President of the United States being present. Spoke to her 3 times. So yes, she singled me out. Sad to say, I'm one of several stories of whistleblowers being targeted and other people. But yeah, she singled me out, forced my resignation. I was a 30-year law enforcement career, forced my resignation, stripped me of my retirement, and off I went.
And you haven't had that restored, even though you've been exonerated by Congress and by history, because Stephen, we've had now documents from Kash Patel from the Pentagon. We've seen the documents from Muriel Bowser denying the National Guard in Washington, D.C., right? The same thing with Pelosi's office. All of the facts and all of the actual documentation back up your story and prove that nobody in Washington, D.C., who was in charge that day, allowed President Trump to bring in the National Guard, that it was the president trying to bring the National Guard in before January 6th.
I appreciate you asking that. And what's interesting is they identified the number one fatal flaw. It was the law, 2 U.S. 1970, and they changed that law. They changed that law in December of 2021, 11 months after January 6th. They changed it and now allow the chief of police the authority to call in federal resources unilaterally in an emergency. You would have thought that would have been a nice clue to say, hey, maybe we need to look back at what Chief Son went through. But I'm just glad that, finally, and I fought to testify. The January 6th Select Committee wouldn't even let me come in and testify in public. You can probably guess why. But went before Chairman Loudermilk's January 6th Committee. I've testified a couple times there. And you're absolutely right. December 17th, in a bipartisan report from that committee, they exonerated me on page 1. So, I'm working with the committee. I'm working with Barry Loudermilk to see what can be done to correct what I've suffered. But like I said, there's, I'm one of a few stories.
Yeah. What would you like to see done? You should get your pension back. Obviously, you should serve actually on the new task force, since you were seemingly the one guy who wanted to protect Washington, D.C. and protect the Capitol And I think everybody who's a patriot wanted the National Guard there that day, including the President of the United States, because nobody wanted bad actors to do bad things. We know as a matter of fact that Antifa members and BLM members playing MAGA supporters wearing red hats in order to we know that because they've been criminally charged and are doing federal sentences now for the crimes they committed that day. And they were usurping the movement. They had snuck in and were trying to sow discord. Anyway, the point is that the National Guard being there that day would have, I think, by and large, prevented anything from happening and would have stopped one of the greatest scams, I think, and disinformation's pulled ever on the American public. That being said, what would you like to say? Sorry, this
no.
Still gets me upset to this day. What would you like to see done, Stephen?
And there's so many things we could talk about with this. So I'll tell you this. Yeah. When you look at it, and Congress actually, one of their reports even said, had the House and Senate Sergeant Arms approved Chief Son's request, the breach of the Capitol most likely would have never happened. That's Congress's own report. So think about that. For me, it's just correcting the injustice. Again, I fought to prevent it in advance. I fought to prevent it while it was happening. It'd be nice for them to, somehow, try and prevent correct the injustice that occurred. And, I have 30 years of law enforcement, a little over 25 with the Washington, D.C. police, worked patrolling their streets for many, many years before coming up here at the nation's capital, where I was the chief of police for only 18 months before January 6th. Love law enforcement, love the men and women in the department, talk to them regularly. Would love to somehow support it, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what support I get. And it'd be nice to have OMB review the situation. Maybe they can come up with a solution, but we'll see.
Well, we're broadcasting from the White House, Stephen. Maybe I'll just go upstairs, and just start knocking on doors.
there you go. You're in the place to make things happen. But again, I greatly appreciate you asking about that. But again, what I've said from day one, January 6th was preventable. Didn't have to happen, and it could have easily been prevented.
Yes. Would you serve on any type of Protect DC administration? Would you volunteer your services if the president asked to come back and help perhaps adjudicate some of the problems here?
I'd be happy to assist in any way I'm asked to assist, advisory, whatever, however it is. I love law enforcement. I think the men and women, I still think it's an honorable and noble career. It's just they're facing a tough road. And I think when you look at Washington, D.C., having patrolled, I was there during the height of the homicides in 1991 in Washington, D.C. Everyone's using these crime statistics. No matter how you cut it, D.C. has a homicide rate that's probably 5-6 times that of any big city in the United States of America. That is unacceptable for this nation's capital. And you saw the ABC reporter talking earlier. People don't feel safe on the street. And you need to be able to feel safe in the nation's capital.
Yeah. Just a quick comment here, Stephen, to some of those who are saying, no, D.C.'s safe, crime's down. I've never seen crime in D.C., given your background. All
you have to do is walk around. When you see off-duty police officers having to work in every grocery store, when you see them in front of community centers, when you see armed security around ATMs, that tells you it's not a safe area. People don't feel safe. The community, if they felt safe, you would be hearing about it. They don't feel safe.
Well, we deeply appreciate you ratioing Nancy Pelosi. We deeply appreciate, again, you're just a straight shooter. You're just telling the facts as they are. Yep. I think it's incredibly ironic now that Nancy Pelosi is attacking the National Guard being deployed here. Maybe we could just end on this because you bring it up in your viral post. I want to pop it back up on screen so that everybody can come here, reshare it, repost it, follow Stephen Sund. But you bring something up that I think is pretty remarkable here. And you note that Nancy Pelosi was thrilled to have the National Guard live in D.C., surround the Capitol with concertina wire, and turn it into a total militarized installation for Joe Biden's installation, right, as president. And, you note that it's kind of, it really smacks of such blight and a real humiliation that she's willing to lock down the Capitol after January 6th and turn it effectively into a no-go zone, a military no-go zone, when she refused to lift a finger before January 6th.
That is correct. It comes down to some very ironic imagery, and I think that's what it was. I've been down there when we've put up anti-scale fence before. I've never seen 2 rows of anti-scale fence, especially with concertina wire. Again, I repeatedly asked, I was repeatedly denied. And then the next day they're bringing in tens of thousands of armed National Guard and 2 rows of fencing. It was, I think, a big image issue.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah,
compensating for something.
Yeah, they didn't want the optics before, and then they wanted the optics.
Ladies and gentlemen, his viral post is still cooking. He's made a lot of international news, and he's joined our show, and we're thankful for him as a friend, and we look forward to telling his story and hopefully seeing him reinstalled here in Washington, D.C. as somebody who can actually bring law and order. The great Capitol Police Chief, former Stephen Sund. Everyone go follow right here. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, sir. Take care, Benny.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to make sure that you have a bright future, even if you live in Washington, D.C., even if you're raising your family in Washington, D.C., as I had the misfortune of doing. I don't want anybody to ever have to go through what I went through here in this city, and that's why we're at the White House today. Honestly, we want to be able to speak with the people who are going to be enforcing this order from President Trump. Part of the way that you can and must have a bright future is, one, probably move out of godforsaken, Democrat-plagued, crime-ridden, failed welfare and narco states, but also invest wisely. And the way that you should invest is with Allio Capital. Allio Capital is an app, and it is a program that follows trends, large scale and small, macro and micro, throughout the world, and allows your money to work for you. Using Altitude AI, the Capital app, make sure that your investments are moving at the speed of the news cycle and the financial cycle. It adapts your portfolio in real time. I use it myself, and boy, man, it is cooked. I'm a very hands-off investor. I'm somebody that just kind of says, we got other things to build here. I can't sit around as a day trader. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what Allio is for. Download their app today in the App Store or Google Play, or text my name, Benny, to 511-511. That's ALLIO, capital. Text Benny to 511-511. Download the Allio app and text Benny to 511-511. Investing involves risks, including potential loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee a result. Consult your financial professional before making any decisions. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll. So we are... Oh, yes. Okay. Please tell me I have time to cover this Adam Schiff story. It's very, very important. Adam Schiff today decided to go on a historic run of L's. Adam Schiff is one of the dumbest, most insufferable, most dishonest creatures I've ever seen in Washington, D.C. And again, I've lived here for 15 years, and I've seen the worst of them. If something leaves Adam Schiff's mouth, it is highly likely that not only is it not true, but the opposite, in fact, is true. Adam Schiff spent the better part of the last 7 years calling President Trump a traitor to this nation, who was dangerous to our national security. Yet here, breaking this morning, I can show you on screen that, in fact, the danger to our national security and the traitor and someone who is a true criminal by every weight and measure is, in fact, Adam Schiff. Democrat whistleblower told FBI that Adam Schiff okayed leaking classified information to hurt President Trump. Oh, my. So Adam Schiff is, of course, on the heels of a mortgage fraud investigation that is happening right now. And now we learn that the FBI, for some reason, and I'm not sure what that reason is, has sat on whistleblower evidence from one of Adam Schiff's own staffers, saying that Adam Schiff intended on leaking classified information in order to undermine Trump in a criminal conspiracy. Let's read the top line here. Career intelligence officer who worked for Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee for more than a decade repeatedly warned the FBI, beginning in 2017, that then Adam Schiff approved leaking classified information to smear Donald Trump in a now debunked Russia-Gate conspiracy. According to bombshell FBI memos, Director Kash Patel turned over to Congress the FBI 302 interview reports obtained by Just the News, state that the intelligence staffer, a Democrat by party affiliation, who described himself as a friend of both Schiff and California Senator, former Republican House Intel Chairman Devin Nunes, considered the classified leaking to be unethical, illegal, and treasonous, but was not to worry about it because Schiff believed that he would be spared prosecution under the Constitution's speech and debate clause. No publicly disclosed opinion from the Attorney General or Solicitor General has ever been found making that determination as a matter of law. But officials told Just the News that the DOJ officials showed little interest in pursuing Adam Schiff, and the whistleblower confirmation that Adam Schiff is taking classified information and then leaking it to the media when the allegations were brought to them, citing a very same excuse that the lawmaker had offered. This is very, very bad. Let's go ahead and read the whistleblower report here. When working in this capacity, a redacted staffer's name, the staffer, was called to an all-staff meeting held by Adam Schiff, the interview report said. In this meeting, Schiff stated that the group would leak classified information which was derogatory about President Trump. Schiff stated that the information would be used to indict President Trump. The whistleblower was told that the whistleblower told investigators that he stated this would be illegal, and upon hearing his concerns, unnamed members of the meeting reassured that they would not be caught leaking classified information. The staffer made similar claims to agents in the FBI Washington field office, but was flatly ignored. The FBI reports are available to read on their website now. This seems really bad. Ladies and gentlemen, we have someone who's perfect lined up to chat about this. Our dear friend, Brett Tolman, former federal prosecutor, to chat about, well, are you allowed to leak classified information? This is somebody who's probably handled a considerable amount of classified information, joining us live now. Brett, how are you this morning? Good morning.
Well, Benny. Good morning.
We're live from the White House today, which is awesome. Using the
it's very fitting. It fits well on you.
Started from the bottom, and now we're in Joe Biden's fake White House in the Fisher-Price Resolute desk. So working our way up. Brett, this is a very interesting disclosure from a whistleblower, and there's been a lot of reporting now from the Federalist and some of our other friends online, great sleuths, to really validate everything that this whistleblower is saying. Names, dates, times, connections, reporters, the leaks, the information. It seems dead to rights that this whistleblower has been verified as an accurate and knowledgeable whistleblower who's really telling the truth about real crimes that Adam Schiff engaged in. Maybe you could talk us through what is the crime, what would happen to a regular person if they were to leak classified information?
Yeah, Benny, just for the listeners at the onset, let's just clear one thing up. The speech and debate clause is not a defense to criminally leaking and violating our classified document laws. And it's stressed, actually, when you go into Congress as a new member of Congress, you are told that it is criminal if you are to leak anything, and you have to review such material only in an authorized SCIF. And that is a room that has been swept for bugs, and you have to check your phones and all electronics whenever you go into the SCIF in order to review classified documents. So there's no defense for a member of Congress that would save him. And as to what crime, I just finished a case in which I defended an individual who was prosecuted vigorously by the U.S. Attorney's Office for taking classified information from his work to his home. Now, Benny, the classified information was a formula that he came up with in his own head. He's a nuclear scientist, and he came up with the formula, and he didn't want to have to redo it. So he took the formula from the government that he had created. They prosecuted him. It's a felony. And he faced up to 10 years in federal prison. I mean, they treat this very seriously for everyone else, but for the FBI to walk away from this when I've seen case after case after case of individuals that they have come down on very hard, it's outrageous, and it's offensive to anybody that's worked these kinds of cases.
So yes, I mean, there are very stiff penalties for this. Obviously, I think everybody would agree with this. Every American would say, yeah, absolutely, you shouldn't leak classified information. We don't want that to be something that you can do or get away with. Or if there's a temptation to do that and get paid for it, then the penalties should be very severe. So can you talk me through, like, what would the penalties look like for an average individual leaking classified information?
Yeah, I mean, the fine is up to $250,000 for every leak that's charged. So it depends on the counts in the indictment. Also, keep in mind, some of the punishment hinges on the purpose that the classified leak or the possession of classified documentation illegally. So the purpose becomes very important. If you'll recall, Comey, when he said no prosecutor would prosecute Hillary Clinton for having classified information, I mean, it was just an outright lie. But there was always this question, this debate. What was the purpose of it? Was it just sloppiness? Same with Joe Biden. Was it sloppiness that he had all of these, that he used the classified documents to write his memoirs? Was there anything truly nefarious about it? And there was some analysis of Donald Trump. But with President Trump, it was just, you had him, we're going to go after you because that's how we're going to apply the law. But in reality, you have to look at the purpose to see whether or not there are aggravating factors. Here, I believe this was, in essence, the beginning of a conspiracy to take down a president, to impact his ability to lead. There are other statutes, conspiracy statutes, interference with, official proceedings, etc. There's question. A lot of people have question about treason. Is it treason? You probably don't satisfy the elements for treason, but there are some related crimes that could come into play. And if you found that the individual was doing it in an effort to undermine the United States, you're looking at potential penalties of up to 20 years in federal prison.
Wow. I mean, those are severe penalties, and I believe that those should be enforced. I think everybody who loves this country would say, yeah, absolutely, like, throw the book at people who do this. So this FBI 302, could you explain, like, how this process is working? Again, there has been a considerable amount of validation of this whistleblower. This isn't some crackpot. This isn't some degenerate. This isn't somebody making things up. They've gone through the names, the reporters, the outlets, the sources, the timeline. It's all locked into place, and it's going viral across my timeline, as this seems like an incredibly valid whistleblower. What should happen to Adam Schiff if this is to be investigated and proved?
Well, it is valid. It's, the fact that this is a Democrat staffer, that's working on the committee. This is unusual, Benny. I've seen some things that are unusual in Congress, but to have, they felt compelled enough that the conduct was outrageous enough, that the demand to leak this information was so bad that they were willing to risk their own party being furious or upset and go to the FBI. Now, what would typically happen is a red file would have been opened. A red file is a file that typically involves classified documents or the leaking of classified documents. It's very sensitive. Only certain people can review what the allegations are. That would be open at the top levels of the FBI and DOJ. So you would have, from the DAG's office, the AG's office, and the director of the FBI, all of them would be aware of the allegations. So this is not just some bureaucrat that would have buried this and made a decision themselves. At the highest level, they determined not to do something about it. Because once an allegation comes in on a member of Congress, it immediately triggers certain protocols in the Department of Justice. I was, ironically, given a referral for a member of Congress who allegedly committed mortgage fraud in a manner somewhat similar to the allegations we've heard.
And you're going to have to narrow that down. You're going to have to narrow that down these days.
Yeah.
I can't even guess anymore.
No, I know. You've got Letitia James. You've got Congressman Schiff. You've got the willingness to do what others have been prosecuted for criminally They do in the name of the ends justified, the means in this case. And so when a member of Congress, an allegation comes in, it triggers protocols at the highest levels of the Department of Justice. The U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C. would have handled the prosecution, the investigation, the grand jury, and the prosecution of such a case. But they would have been assisted by the Deputy Attorney General's office in pursuing the case. There's no reason, no legitimate reason to have ignored such a bombshell that comes from one of their own staffers saying, I've seen enough, this is wrong, and it's against the interests of the United States.
Also, given the preponderance of demonstrable evidence of Adam Schiff going on national TV and talking about classified information, it's not like he was trying to hide his cards here. Brett, if you go back and you watch the old news hits that he was doing, he was clearly laundering information, wink, wink, nod, nod to this. It wouldn't be hard to actually pin this down and to see where this is coming from. Adam Schiff was doing it on live TV, live on MSNBC, in the green room where he has his own pitch tent during the time period in order to shovel the Russiagate hoax at people. I recall, for instance, Adam Schiff saying, I have seen the evidence that Donald Trump colluded with Vladimir Putin to steal the election. I remember that line specifically. Still waiting for that, Brett. But where, like, it was pretty obvious. He was belligerent about it, actually. If you were a prosecutor and you were looking into this.
Well, the brazenness comes from a couple of factors. One, he was a former AUSA, a former federal prosecutor. And he became a member of Congress, and he saw and watched Comey leak information to the press when it was convenient. I'm sure he was in the loop when others had done it. And then members of Congress have been given, they've been given a pass, whether it's insider trading or any of the other things that the regular public wouldn't be given a pass on. They were given a pass. So I see that brazenness having grown. And then Donald Trump comes in, and it triggers their willingness to finally cross the line. And multiple individuals were willing to do it. And I think it comes as a result of never having been held accountable as their professional career, occurred, and as they moved up into prominence, and the media, fawned all over most of these individuals because they were attacking the person everyone agreed they hated, and that was Donald Trump.
I read through these 302s, man. Adam Schiff as CIA director, holy moly. We don't thank Donald Trump enough. We don't. We're not appreciative enough. And I have plenty of appreciation for the man, but I'm looking through this, I'm reading, I'm going, wait a second. As part of this, just for the audience out there, because we haven't gotten to, it's an extensive article that's about 3,000 words. In part of the 302, and maybe we can, producers, can you just grab the FBI files so we can pop them up so everyone can read the documents with us? I always want to make sure we have the documents there for everyone to read. As part of this, and I encourage all of you to go to the FBI website and find it, link in the description. As part of this, it details how Adam Schiff's animus towards Trump and his raging towards Trump comes from, and the origin point of this villain story, the villain origin story comes from Adam Schiff being promised the CIA director role from Hillary Clinton. So that's part of this whistleblower. And that Adam Schiff was distraught over his dream crumbling before his very eyes and turning to ash, that he would not be the CIA director. That would be very much on brand, though, I guess, Brett, and that what we know about Brennan. If Brennan was able to hand the baton to Adam Schiff, I suppose that would definitely be in the same league, right?
I think we not only did we dodge a bullet, but can you imagine Adam Schiff with his lack of, or his warped moral compass, sitting in that position? The types of operations that he would have led would have made the Brennan, Clapper, Russiagate conspiracy pale in comparison to what he would be willing to do. Now that we know he was willing to commit a crime in front of others and tell other people about it. And he feared nothing and no repercussion. And so him in that CIA position would have jeopardized the national security and public safety of the entire country.
Yeah, man. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, gratitude is an important thing. I think it's probably the least practiced virtue in American society today. And so it's good to have some gratitude that Adam Schiff is not CIA director. My God, where would we be as a country? Single most dishonest and duplicitous liar in history. Oh, yeah. Again, on brand for many of the CIA directors. Yes. John Ratcliffe has a hell of a job in front of him.
John does, and I know him, very well, and have spent time with him, and I've measured the man. His character is incredible, and his willingness to expose what has occurred, and his willingness to do things the right way. I think you have a man in the position that wants to do it in an honest, upfront way. We haven't had that for a long time in that position.
Yes. Well, we haven't had a safe Washington, D.C. You talk about a nation under threat. We haven't had a safe Washington, D.C., I think, ever, not in my lifetime or yours. And now it seems like President Trump is trying to do something about it. Washington, D.C., of course, a scar on the face of our nation, is the seat of Western civilization, Brett. And so we should make this an advertisement, actually, for our morals and for our system, that it works. But Washington, D.C. is the exact opposite. I'm not personally familiar with how much time you've spent here. I know as a federal prosecutor, you must have been here quite a bit. But perhaps you could just muse quickly on, does Donald Trump have the right to do this? And does this need to be done?
Yeah, Benny, I've spent better part of a lot of my career. I lived in McLean, Virginia, worked in D.C. for many years at the highest levels of government in both DOJ and then in Congress. I've watched progression. I've seen the rise and the fall of different crimes. What's disheartening right now is the dishonesty about what's actually occurring. You can't fix a problem if you're not honestly assessing the problem. And I'm seeing people on the left saying crime has dropped. Well, in a lot of ways, it's a manipulation of data. Carjackings in 2018, were very low, under 200 for the entire year. 2023 comes around and it's almost 1,000 carjackings, an exponential increase. And then last year they fall somewhat to roughly 500 to 600. So then everybody is saying, look, crime has fallen, in order to push back on what Donald Trump is doing. And the reality is that's not an honest assessment. If I spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. I talk to people. I ride in Ubers. Uber drivers are terrified. They won't go into certain neighborhoods. Several that I've ridden with have been carjacked. There's a sense that they're not secure. And so regardless of any data, what Donald Trump is picking up on is the insecurity of individuals in major parts of Washington, D.C. And does he have the authority to do this? He does. What the dynamic, though, that's happening is he's going to stop the crime. And that's just part one. He's not necessarily the enforcement behind holding individuals accountable. That has to come with a joint operation and collaboration between the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Washington, D.C. police. That's the mechanism that has to come next. And that is getting together, put politics aside and say, okay, we've stopped the crime now with the help of the National Guard. Now, what do we do in order to hold them accountable, those that would be willing to commit crime?
Yeah, it's something that was in my timeline this morning, Brett, was one of the DC prosecutors on the city level saying, well, you can't arrest your way out of crime. Yeah, you can. I mean, that's actually how you do it. In fact,
the truth about deterrence, Benny, is it's not the length of the sentence; it's the predictability of being prosecuted. So if they have no predictability, they don't believe they're going to be caught, they don't believe they're going to be charged, then they continue. And that's what we know about deterrence. It doesn't matter how long you sentence them. The fact that they have genuine fear to be caught and prosecuted is what will stop the crime from occurring.
So lucky you, Judge Janine will actually be on the program in just a few minutes. So
she can go through the plan.
you're saying this is the key enforcement tactic. You can have as many National Guard troops as you want. You must have somebody to put the criminals in jail.
That's correct. You've got to pursue these cases. It's very tricky when they're juveniles too, because juveniles, there's some of the same rules don't apply, and the U.S. Attorney's Office doesn't have primary jurisdiction over juveniles, and so you've got to work with the state police and these district prosecutors and work together. And there used to be a time in which politics were put aside because everybody wanted to eradicate crime. Lately, we haven't seen that so much from the left.
Well, no, actually, we've seen the opposite. President Trump is here saying we're going to make our nation's capital and the seat of Western civilization safe, and he's being attacked by everyone for it, including Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, who were part of this leaking crew, but also Nancy Pelosi, ironically, with her history at the National Guard. Hillary Clinton has come out of the woodwork in order.
I thought that.
Yeah. Isn't that's just utterly fascinating. But yeah, I mean, sure, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if they get away with it. But saying, yeah, we're the party of criminals and illegal aliens. I don't know. Let's see how it works out for you. But yeah. President Trump does have the right to do this. President Trump has the constitutional authority to do this. D.C. is still a federal city. The amendments to the Constitution about D.C. and its nature are still intact and have never been rescinded and have never been amended. Is this correct?
That's correct. The whole country is divided into 94 federal districts, and Washington, D.C. is one, and the most unique because it does not have any state authority. There's no state prosecutors. There's no state investigators. It's all federal jurisdiction. So because of that, the founders were wise to say, we want a place in which the federal government is less than the states. Ironically, that was their intention of creating the federal district of Columbia, that they would not have the same authority and power that the states would, because we wanted a republic in which each of the states could have equal representation and power. So the district then comes under federal jurisdiction only, which is controlled by the executive branch, and President Trump, in charge of the executive branch, has said, I've seen enough. We're going to secure our federal district of Columbia.
Yeah. Well, it's long past due, although I'm happy it's happening now. I wouldn't be living in Florida, actually, if President Trump had done this right before entering office, but that's the way God works, and God always has a plan. And ladies and gentlemen, part of that plan is you to go follow Brett. Here is his X account, and he does such remarkable work with Right on Crime. He's also a pioneer in the Great West, always joining with classic Americana buffaloes and roaming horses. And oh man, we were just in Bozeman, Montana yesterday. So awesome out there.
Beautiful.
Oh, it's just so amazing out there. We went through. It was like my first rodeo, my literal first rodeo.
Oh, really? Well, we have a place here. You're always welcome, and you and I can ride in the Black Hills, right up to Mount Rushmore.
I would love that. I always say Black Hills matter. That's what I always say. Well, Brett, till next time. I mean, we were flying fighter jets, so that will come out soon. Maybe we can queue up some. Yeah, okay, I see it in the script. We were flying fighter jets with Jared Isaacman. But yes, riding horses also amazing. And we'll do that next time.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Ben.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Well, we should do that, right, guys? We got to show them. We got to show them the jet footage. Do we have the jet footage, ALX? If we don't have the jet footage, boy, we got to get it. Holy moly, ALX has some really cool jet footage. ALX, send in that clip that you sent me. Just a quick recap as to why we had 2 days off of the program, and then why we had, I don't know, how would you say it? Brooks Brothers, Benny filling in yesterday. What do we call Danny? Danny filled in and did an honorable job yesterday during the Trump announcement. I know the chat is quite smitten with Danny. And, well, Danny, you're welcome as a co-host anytime. Many in the chat were saying that Danny has better hair than me. I tend to agree. Danny's significantly younger. Some were calling him Timu Benny Johnson. or DEI hire Benny Johnson. Very offensive. And I would never repeat anything like that. I would never repeat those chats at all. Where I'm thankful to have such an incredible team here that could just rock and roll, let her rip. We actually decided to do this actually on a moment's notice. We were traveling back from Dallas and traveling back from our trip. We went Dallas, Chicago, and then to Bozeman. And the reason why we were in Bozeman was to fly some jets and to go meet with Senator Sheehy. It's a very cool dude. And we got a lot of stories and a lot of content coming out of that. Hey, Alex, let me know when you got that sweet clip. If you need it. Oh, yeah, that's the one. Pop it up. Show it to me, baby. Yeah, that's so cool. We have some issues this morning with the Telegram chat. Uh-oh. Klein does not have it. Okay, that's all right. Maybe ALX can pop it up. Thank you, boys. All right, here's what we were doing. There we go. That's my jet. How cool is that? That's what we were flying with the Polaris jet program. We'll be bringing you that footage and that coverage very, very soon. And ladies and gentlemen, that has yet to be released, and we're editing that right now. But what we did release, what we did release, Timu Danny, that's so unfair. Danny, we love you. There's nothing but love for Danny in the chat, nothing but love for Danny. Danny does fill in for us when we are on the road. We were on the road in Jasmine Crockett's district. We were able to release that. I want to just do a massive, massive shout out. And Klein, I do want to play the full Jasmine Crockett video. We're not going to play the whole thing, but I want everyone to see the full video. Thank you. I want to say a massive shout out, and just really quickly about what we do around here. We're here for you. We are endeavoring to be the show that is the most locked in with the chat, with the audience, with the aura, with the vibe of like what we're building here. It's a big movement. You're part of it. And when we put it out to the team that we have here at the Benny Brigade, and we said, who would you like for us to expose next? You said, Jasmine Crockett. And so this is making good on a promise and an obligation that we have to you to listen and then to act on the movement that we're all building together. And so, ladies and gentlemen, promises made, promises kept. Here is our reporting on Jasmine. We'll play just the first short few minutes here. But boy, howdy, were we able to expose Jasmine. This has been seen by tens of millions of people now online. Still waiting for Jasmine to yip, 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 yip. Boy, man, they yap all the time. They're constantly yapping. But nothing from her on this. Isn't that amazing? Same with AOC. They're constantly running their mouths. And then we drop something like this and it shuts them up. All the oxygen is sucked right out of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what we were able to discover about Jasmine Crockett. Thanks to you. Let's go.
Yo, what's up, guys? We are in Dallas, Texas today in the heart of Jasmine Crockett's district. It is rough, it is tough, it is hood, and it is foul, just like Jasmine Crockett. That's the whole persona, right? Tough talking, street fighting girl from the ghetto. That's Jasmine Crockett's entire aura, the attitude.
Looks like in the shitter to me.
The volume.
Don't tell me to calm down.
Calm down.
Because y'all talk noise
down.
and then you're
out of control.
The voice.
You know, the congressional seat is over 4 times as large as my House seat.
I'm trying to get clarification.
But there's a little problem with Jasmine. It's all a lie. She's code switching. She's a fraud, and we can prove it today. This is where Jasmine says she's from, but this is where Jasmine's really from. Welcome to St. Louis, Missouri, Jasmine Crockett's hometown. But let me show you where Jasmine Crockett's really from.
Welcome to St. Louis, specifically the Republican suburbs of St. Louis, with the mansions, country clubs, and private schools. This is where Jasmine Crockett was raised. We're talking quiet suburbs, manicured lawns, college brochures in the mailbox, and neighbors who wave when they mow the lawn.
This is where Jasmine Crockett went to school. It's called the Mary Institute and St. Louis Country Day School. It's one of the most prestigious institutions in the entire country, also one of the most expensive. Check this out. This isn't just a good school. This is the #1 school in the entire state of Missouri. It costs $35,000 per year to attend high school here. And the reason why is because the average test scores here guarantee your placement in an elite college institution. It's one of the best preparatory schools in the world. The average SAT score here is 1350, and the average ACT score here is 30. This is an elite institution. Did your high school have its own private Wimbledon? How large was your high school's lacrosse field? This lacrosse field is expansive. Did your high school have its own aquatic center on site? Can Jasmine Crockett swim? She has no excuse because she went here. This is where Jasmine learned to play clarinet by the apple tree on this beautiful campus of the Mary Institute, St. Louis Country Day School. Did your high school have its own private dock and pond teeming with colorful fish and wildlife? I think not. Neither did mine, because we're poor. But Jasmine is elite. After graduating from this elite country day school, Jasmine Crockett was immediately accepted at another elite institution, Rhodes College in Tennessee.
Rhodes College is a private liberal arts school that looks like Hogwarts and costs a whopping $74,000 per year. That makes Rhodes one of the most expensive colleges in America. There are only 2,000 students enrolled at this institution, nestled in the rolling leafy hills of Old Memphis, and Jasmine, from the block, is one of them. But the elitism did not end there. Jasmine went on to attend and graduate from the University of Houston Law Center, where tuition runs a whopping $40,000 per year. In total, Jasmine Crockett's elite education cost close to $1 million. Just to talk like this on national TV.
Donald Trump is a piece of shit. Okay, we know that.
In a functioning democracy.
Tisk tisk. What would Jasmine's English instructors here think of her now? Ah, how time goes by. I forgot. Jasmine Crockett didn't always used to talk like a hood rat. For most of her life, Jasmine talked like this.
I just got to Austin, and I had to meet 5 people to get here.
After graduating law school, Jasmine went on to start her own law firm. She got elected immediately to the Texas State House and then moved swiftly to the U.S. Congress with the help of just a few foreign billionaires along the way. And now she's polling for president in 2028. If anything, Jasmine Crockett's life story is not a condemnation of systemic racism in America, but the true definition of obscene American privilege that anyone from anywhere can be and do anything. This
Okay, all right,
started
all right,
from the
all right,
bottom.
all right.
Now we're here.
Everybody
This
can
is
go
started
watch.
from the
Everyone can go watch the full report. Just a massive shout out to the team. By the way, it's heartbreaking what you see in South Dallas, where Jasmine Crockett represents. Jasmine Crockett is a code switcher. She's somebody who's utterly fraudulent. She's using the people who are suffering in her district for power. She's not from there. She doesn't share their way of life. She says she's from the struggle, but it's the exact opposite. She's stepping on their backs in order for her to get more. Jasmine Crockett is a privileged elitist who comes from some of the wealthiest schools in the world. Millions of dollars poured into her education just so that she can live action role play a girl from the ghetto. It's all fake. And leads to the real question here, which is, what's wrong with these people? Why can we, and by the way, again, a thank you to this audience for pushing us to go do that story. Who's up next? Ilhan Omar? Happy to do it. You know us. We're going to lock in and we're going to do it for you. But it does lead to a very important question, and this is the question that we asked on Megyn Kelly's show yesterday, and we just a huge shout out and thanks to Megyn Kelly for featuring our reporting, is what's wrong with these people? You know, like we talk about it regularly on the program. I went to community college in a cornfield surrounded by cows. That's what Iowa is. That's where I was raised. That's where I went to school. It just is what it is. You might like it. You might hate it. It's where I come from. And I bet you're pretty honest about where you come from. Shout out where you come from in the chat. Like, what is wrong with these? Why are they so pathological about it? You know, it's not just Jasmine Crockett, who's a total liar and is so deeply dishonest about who she is and what she comes from, but also AOC does this. Zorhan Mandami does this. Kamala Harris does this. Kamala Harris, I did the fries. No, you didn't. There's no record of you working at McDonald's. I guess we should be thankful because it gave us the greatest photo op of all time in the history of presidencies. Donald Trump rolling up his sleeves and working the fries. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, there's something wrong with these individuals. There's something wrong with them. They're not fit for leadership. If you're this pathological, if you're someone who is so uncomfortable with who you are and who God made you and where you come from, then you deserve to be nowhere near power. You don't deserve to like watch my kids for an afternoon, my God. But like you deserve to be nowhere near the levers of power if you're this insecure, if you have this much self-loathing, which I think is where it really comes from. If you're this ashamed of yourself and who you are, then you have some real deep-seated issues. Probably only God can solve, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you about my issues. My issues is that we've had a spate of very, very early mornings, and I needed my coffee this morning. That coffee that fills my cup is going to be blackout. You know it. On the way to the airport this morning, way before the sun rises, in order to be here. I was in Tampa last night. You got to get here. You got to take that first flight out. Crack of dawn. Not even the crack of dawn. The sun wasn't even up. Blackout coffee fills my cup, piping hot and black. And that's how you know it's good coffee, because you don't put cream or sugar in it. You don't water it down like Starbucks does. Starbucks makes bad coffee, hoping that you'll pump a bunch of other things into it and they can charge you for it. No, no, no. Blackout coffee, man. Just put it in the pot the way that I do. Drink it hot out the pot. Ladies and gentlemen, it's excellent coffee. You will taste the difference. Their 64,000-foot facility run out of the free state of Florida roasts that coffee in-house. It's amazing. 30 hardworking Americans do it every single day. Make sure that you have the best coffee in the world. If you believe in hard work and American values, coffee that actually tastes like coffee, blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Use the code Benny for 20% off your first order. Support the American dream. Drink Blackout. blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Start drinking real coffee. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the producers are telling me that Judge Janine is joining. They're getting set right now, and we're ready to rock and roll. One other little small thing that we did while we were on the road was we went and visited with our dear friends, the McCloskeys. Mark McCloskey just got his AR-15 back. And we think that that's just one of the best stories in the country, and it sort of ties into what made me flee Washington, D.C. Here we go. There's the McCloskeys right there. Thank you, Klein. We were able to visit with them. And oh, by the way, like, just let me know, guys, when the judge is on and ready. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. All right. There's the McCloskeys there. What an incredible full circle. It's the way that God works, isn't it? What a remarkable full circle. This is ground zero. We visited them at that famous door front there and their home in St. Louis. This was the moment that the first constitutional Americans, proud of their republic, stood up for their rights, stood up for their God-given rights, and said, just because you're an angry mob, you don't have the right to come murder me and burn my house to the ground. Just because you're angry about whatever. Fill in the blank, because it's going to change next month. You don't have that right. I'm an American, damn it. And so we will stand our ground. And the McCloskeys did that. And after 1,080 days, Mark McCloskey finally got back his legally owned, acquired, and brandished AR-15, where he defended his property. And it's just a wonderful story. It's something that, of course, is dovetailing around right now pretty savagely here in the city of Washington, D.C. And producers, please let me know when the judge is on and ready to go. It's something that, okay, good, yeah, great. It's part of the reason why my family fled Washington, D.C. Again, we have retold our personal story before. I am so deeply honored to have Judge Janine on our program, who's somebody who's fixing this. I know she cares deeply about families. She cares deeply about children. She cares deeply about the fabric that builds America. Judge Janine, somebody who's fought for this her entire career, and she's doing it here in the nation's capital, arguably maybe her most important fight ever, to ensure that no father and no mother has to fear for their children's lives like we did every single day. And so joining us live now, it is our honor to bring you the great Judge Janine. Welcome to the program, Janine Pirro. It is our great honor to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be on your show also. So I'm as excited and thrilled as you are. Thanks.
So we just had a federal prosecutor on, Brett Tolman. He's an awesome dude. And he says that you can bring in all the National Guard you want and you can double the police force. But if you don't have a prosecutor here in the district that is willing to actually deliver prosecutions of criminals, then it'll all be for naught. So I just want to begin. The table is yours. What is going to happen now to criminals in the city of Washington, D.C.?
Well, first of all, let me say that I'm honored that the president appointed me, nominated me to Senate. I'm now Senate confirmed. And just today, the Attorney General swore me in as a confirmed United States attorney. The point that Brett Tolman, who I respect highly, makes is a very legitimate one. And the president has made a decision to do this surge in areas where we've seen a lot of crime, because D.C., no matter how you look at it, whether you think crime is up or down, doesn't really matter. There's too much crime here. And 2 years ago, we had one of the highest crime rates in the world in terms of cities. This is not a very large area. There are only 700,000 people who live here, but the crime rate, then the murder rate, is through the roof. So the president's agenda in making sure that we do this surge and go into these areas where there's lawlessness is one that is not only needed because it is an emergency situation, but for me as a prosecutor, I need to get these cases into my office. Can I get a conviction? I can tell you this. DC juries are particularly tough, but not as tough as the judges in DC. There are very, very problematic areas where the DC Council, which is really a substitute for a state government, given the breakdown of DC as a district, has passed laws that make it almost impossible to get legitimate sentences, Benny. So if I have a guy who shoots someone on a bus in the chest with an illegal gun, the judge has the power to give this person probation. 2 years probation, and say go to college. First of all, for the illegal gun, I want him to go to jail. For using it in a public place, I want to add more time to it. And for shooting someone in the chest, I want even more time. But the judge gives him probation. So what we've got here are judges who are inclined, based upon the laws that the DC Council has passed, to literally forgive these defendants. And I'm not even mentioning the fact that I don't have access to 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds who literally shoot people. If they shoot people, but they don't die, Benny, I can't prosecute them. What happens? They go to family court where the state attorney general has jurisdiction, not me. And the purpose of family court is rehabilitation, and they can get to go to ice cream socials and yoga. Well, you know, given the fact that I've got 30 years as a prosecutor, a judge, and a DA, and this is my wheelhouse, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we have jurisdiction over the young punks who are roaming these streets and literally beating people to a pulp until a police officer accidentally drives by and interrupts it, as is what's happened with the young man who previously worked in the administration under Doge. We've got an intern who was shot in the chest going out for McDonald's in an area that's not a high crime area. This has to stop, and I'm going to do everything in my power to get it to stop, whether it's by getting jurisdiction over these young people or fighting to make sure that judges send people to jail. And I'm taking felons in possession of a gun to district court where they hand out more severe sentences to make sure that that small core of criminals are sent to jail and taken off the street.
So I would love for you to respond to the likes of Hillary Clinton and the likes of Nancy Pelosi, who's saying, oh, DC's safe, it's perfect, it's pristine. I would never want to live there. We live in our vineyards high up in the hills of Napa, but it's perfect. It's just like downtown San Francisco. There's just no crime. It's a wonderful place, and that you're all overreacting by bringing in the National Guard.
You know what? Shame on Hillary. Shame on Nancy. I mean, I'm not at all surprised. They're almost not worth responding to. You tell Eric Tarpinian, his parents who lost him a couple of weeks ago, shot in the chest, caught in the middle of gunfire on the street. You tell that mother and father and sister that the place is safe. You tell the kid who was just beaten up to a pulp, a broken nose, severe concussion, oh, DC is safe. You tell the 25 teens who were shot and killed in DC in 2024, all victims of color, that it's safe in DC. You go back and tell Hillary and tell Nancy that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. If they want to make crime political, tell them to stay in their own area. Don't come into DC, because we're not politicizing it. We're fighting it the way it should be fought. And all their namby-pamby political ideological nonsense doesn't fight crime.
It's amazing, the statistic that you just brought up. Now, D.C. is a very violent place, but the vast majority of crime actually happens to black residents in D.C. who are the majority here. They're the ones that are terrorized the very most. And I remember living here, Judge Janine, and there was a young man who was on his way to football practice. He was 6 years old. Yep. And he was shot and killed in a drive-by. They weren't targeting him. They were just spraying the neighborhood with bullets. And this was right next to a ball field. I remember coaching a youth football team and constantly having to run for cover because of gunshots with the children right there. These are 6-year-olds. And by the way, they're all black. And so my question is, for a party that says Black Lives Matter, it's pretty remarkable for them to just brush off the deadly hellscape that is Washington, D.C.
Well, we just had a beautiful 3-year-old girl who was shot and killed, caught in the middle of the gunfire. Look, these crews, as they're called in D.C., have been allowed to run roughshod for a variety of reasons. Number one is the fact that most of them don't come within the jurisdiction of my office. And we're going to change that, Benny. I'm telling you, as sure as I'm standing here, we're going to change that. Otherwise, my purpose here, my being here serves no purpose. Number two, we're going to make judges accountable. We're going to identify those judges who are giving probation for shootings. We're going to make sure that when we get these cases, that they're solid cases sufficient to prosecute. And make no mistake, when I came into this office, it was amazing. This was a neglected office. We're down 90 prosecutors, 60 investigators and paralegals. There literally were contracts that were being signed over by people who signed repeatedly by people who didn't know what they were signing. This was neglect. This is an office where there's no real institutional regulation in terms of this is what we've got to do to tell the police what they're doing wrong. It's kind of like a laissez-faire, whatever. Well, the people on my staff, and I admire them, they understand now they're going to work. We're going to fight the crime. We're going to be accountable, and we're going to make a difference. Otherwise, there's no point in our even being here.
Oh, God. Oh, everyone's just cheering right now, hearing that, because every proud American wants to be able to take their children to Washington, D.C. safely. They want to be able to travel here. There are millions of people around the world that come here to see the seat of Western civilization. And what message are we sending them when you can't even walk down the street safely?
Well, it was Pam Bondi, our Attorney General, who said yesterday, there are so many of the museums and these places of historical interest that are free, that Americans can come to and enjoy, but they're afraid to come here. And that's why we've got this push right now. The president is going to make DC safe and beautiful again. And by the way, for those people who say crime is down, that's nonsense. From what? From the fourth highest in the world in terms of a city? What about the low-level crimes, the quality of life crimes? You think anybody's being arrested, Benny, for shoplifting? You think anybody's being arrested for damage to property or to cars, or trying to break into a car where there is no stealing of that car? Let me tell you, I guarantee you there's 25 to 30% of the crime here that's not even being reported because the public knows nobody gives a damn. Not anymore. We're going to change all this. We're going to make people accountable. And in the meantime, I've got to make my staff, several of them worked last night till 11:30, 12 o'clock, putting together stats. But it starts with me. If I'm passionate about this, if I believe in what I'm doing, then they follow. And that's what's good about this office. And that's what's going to make a difference in D.C. The police chief, Pam Smith, I work with her. I admire her. And we're going to work together with the mayor to make sure that we make this city safe again. And ideology and politics have no role to play. It's about safety, fighting crime, getting the punks who are making our lives miserable, and taking the lives of innocent minority teens. We're going to make them accountable. And I'd like to, honestly, Benny, I'd like to show you a poster. Can we show them that poster? Please. I know it's too big, but we just put it together, Benny, and I want to show it to you.
An exclusive. Now, an exclusive. Live on the show. Here we go.
2024, I want you to see, in 2024.
Fine, let's go big here, please.
Can you see this? Let me get out of the way. These are the people who were shot and killed, all teenagers in D.C., all African Americans shot and killed in D.C. Taya Settles, 3 years old. David Bailey, 14. Darren Shaw. This is what I'm dealing with. No one's talking about this, Benny. I'm talking about it right now. There are no whites here who are teens who were killed. They're all minority community, and no one's talking about them. Now, let me show you 2025. We just put this together last night. I am stunned, Benny. Right now, so far this year, again, all teens, all African Americans, no whites. The whites are shot and they're older. But this whole community is reeling. Their children are being killed. Who's talking about this, Benny? Nobody. This is only until August. So that's my mission right now. And this is what we're going to change.
Incredible. I cannot wait for you to roll out those boards. Nothing speaks more than to see those innocent faces of those young children that were killed. And I saw it. That's why I had to get my family out of here. I know that you're up against a hard out and you have the most important job in the world right now, but I have to ask about, let's just call it a little more white collar crime, if you would. Brett Tolman, as you know, was just on and he was begging me to ask you this question. So if you would allow me just a few more minutes. Okay. So that's the low level crime. And we're here with you, and we hope that you get rid of all of it from top to bottom. Adam Schiff, today, there was an FBI 302 that has now been declassified by Kash Patel. It's gone to Congress, and it's about Adam Schiff leaking classified information. It's a whistleblower from his office, and the documents are here and they're public. And Brett Tolman is saying, well, you listen, only the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. can make a decision on a case like this. And so my question is open-ended. Have you reviewed his documents? Are you familiar with the Adam Schiffs and the criminal conspiracy to leak against President Trump? Do you plan on investigating?
You know what, Benny? I think you know that this is my wheelhouse. And the difference between me and some other people is that I don't talk about what I'm investigating. I don't talk about what I'm doing. When I have the evidence, when I have enough to go forward, you will hear from me loud and clear.
That we know, and that the entire audience knows. Everybody must follow someone who I believe has a charge from God, actually, to clean up our nation's capital. The great Janine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. Follow her here at her official account. And I think she has millions more on her personal account. But let's make sure that her official U.S. Attorney account gets millions of followers here. She's doing the work to clean up our nation's capital so that it can be a place that all Americans can be proud of. Godspeed.
Thank you. Thank you, Benny. God bless. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you will see in short order we have some other meetings in the building, and so we are going to hop off here. Thank you for joining our live today. We've never done anything like this. It is just our great honor to have been asked and invited, and our deep appreciation, please, nothing but love in the chat for the team at the White House here who set all of this up. Harmeet Dillon, I know that we had her booked. We had a technical error that unfortunately, because she's in such a secure building, sometimes it's hard to connect. We're going to make sure that we connect next time when we are back in the city. And so, unfortunately, Harmeet was not able to make it for this show, but we love her, and we are so thankful for the staff at the White House to help us set this up, and the team here. And it is our great honor to do this show every single day and leave you with uplifting from Romans 13:12, our verse of the day. The night is far spent. The day is at hand. Therefore, let us cast off the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Yes. The armor of light, ladies and gentlemen, coming up soon. Keep your eyes on the Caroline Leavitt press conference. That is scheduled here for 1 o'clock. We'll have some surprises for you. We'll be live for it. We just want to say thank you for watching. Remember that light will conquer the darkness. Good will conquer evil. What man intends for evil, God intends for good. And ladies and gentlemen, in the end, we win. And we out here in the White House. It's your boy, Benny. See ya.
Dun, 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 dun. Little pig, let me in.
Benny Johnson, what he did is incredible. I mean, he was the leader of the committee, and he did it.
Where the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to life. Liberty to light, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light, bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.